Hello and welcome to the video AWS Elastic Beanstalk Deploy Simple Spring Boot Application. With me Nam Hà Minh from CodeJava.net. In this video, I'd love to share with you the steps to deploy a simple Spring Boot application without database using Elastic Beanstalk Web Management Console with the following steps. Firstly, package the Spring Boot application to a jar file and then create a new application on Elastic Beanstalk and then configure service access and add environment variable and deploy the application. Access the newly deployed application. Check AWS related services, terminate environment and undeploy the application. Note that using Elastic Beanstalk is free, but you will have to pay AWS resources used by the apps such as EC2, S3, RDB. And to follow this video, I suppose that you have an AWS account, which is the root user, and have an IAM user that has administrative access and an executable jar file of a Spring Boot application. And note that you must have a valid credit or debit card to sign up for an AWS account, and it will be charged about 1 to 2 USD for account verification, but you will get the money back later. And I recommend you to check this video how to create AWS account on my YouTube channel at this URL to know how to create an AWS account. And then I recommend you check the video how to create IAM users on my YouTube channel at this URL to know how to create an IAM user that has administrative access. For example, Spring Boot application, a simple Spring Boot application without a database, you can download one from my Java blog at this. And you see this sample Spring Boot application is just a Spring MVC application showing a user registration form. And I think it's worth reviewing some key concepts in Elastic Beanstalk. You know, Elastic Beanstalk is a service for deploying and scaling web applications and services on AWS Cloud. Developers can quickly launch applications on AWS Cloud without the complexity of provisioning and managing underlying infrastructure. And in Elastic Beanstalk, application is a logical collection of environments, versions, and environment configurations. And version is a specific labeled iteration of deployable code for an application. And environment is a collection of resources running an application version. And environment configuration is the collection of parameters and settings that define how an environment and its associated resource behave. So an application can have many versions, and each version is unique, and each environment runs only one application version at a time, and you can run the same application version or different application versions in many environments simultaneously. Now let's get a sample Spring Boot application and test it on localhost before deploying it on AWS. So I use the Spring Boot template form application on my CodeJava blog at this URL. So click to head over to the tutorial. You see Spring Boot template form handling tutorial. Scroll to the end of the article and you can see the link to download the sample project here, Spring Boot form.zip. This is a zip archive file, and I already downloaded this Spring Boot project onto my local computer. Let me show you. It is here, Spring Boot form project, and let me open a new terminal window and package that Spring Boot project into an executable Java file and run it, test it on localhost before deployment. So I change the current directory to downloads, and you can see that project here, Spring Boot form. Okay, and I used Maven to clean and package the project as an executable Java file. MVN package. Okay, build success, and you can see it generates an executable Java file under the target directory here. You see, and let me run it using Java command Java -jar and then the Java file name Spring Boot form 1.0.jar. You see, it is starting a Spring Boot application successfully. And let me test it in a web browser, in Chrome browser. Localhost port number 8080, and you can see it is a very simple Spring Boot Spring MVC application. So let me test it. Click here. Okay, you see this is user registration form. Now let me stop the application here. Press Ctrl C. Okay, stopped. And if I refresh this again, it should show error. Okay. So in the next few minutes, I will show you how to upload this executable Java file Spring Boot form -1.0.jar to deploy it on AWS Cloud using Elastic Beanstalk web management console. Next, let's head over to AWS management console at aws.amazon.com. Click sign in to the console button here to sign in, and I'm going to sign in as IAM user using my AWS account ID, IAM username, and IAM password. This IAM user has administrative access. Okay, you see I have signed in successfully as an IAM user that has administrative access, and you can see the recently visited services S3, Elastic Beanstalk, EC2, RDS. If you don't see Elastic Beanstalk here, go to the menu Services, Compute, and you can see Elastic Beanstalk here. So click that menu to go to Elastic Beanstalk Management Console, and currently no applications are deployed. Okay, so click the button Create Application here to create a new application on AWS. Okay, so there are 6 steps as you can see here. In the first step, we configure the environment. So choose the default environment. Here is the web server environment because we are going to deploy a Java web application based on Spring Boot, and then enter the application name. For example, my Spring Boot app, and it automatically suggests the environment name is my Spring Boot app -n, and here specify a subdomain for the application. So I specify subdomain is my spring boot app, and then you can see the AWS region is US East. You can choose the region of your choice here from the menu here. You can see I choose US East, and Elastic Beanstalk will provision resources and host the applications on the selected region here. So you can see the region in the domain name here, US East 2, and then the top level domain name is elasticbeanstalk.com, and click the check availability button to make sure that the domain is available. You see it shows a green check mark. Okay, so that's for the environment information, and for the platform information here, the default platform type is managed platform, and under platform here choose Java, and you can see Elastic Beanstalk AWS uses Crypto 17, a distribution of OpenJDK 17 platform version. Choose the recommended value. Okay, and for the application code, we choose upload your code and enter a version label is version 1, and choose local file. You can upload a file on the local computer or from the S3. Here I choose local file, and I choose the executable Java file which was created before in downloads here, Spring Boot form, target, and you can see the Java file here, Spring Boot form 1.0. Click open. Okay, and under the preset section here, choose the default single instance. Okay, and then click next. And the second step is configure service access, which is very important. This step decides whether the deployment is successful or not. So for new application deployment, the first time deployment on AWS using Elastic Beanstalk, choose the service role is create and use new service role. Okay, you can see it suggests the new service role name here. You can see the permission details of this role. You can see it has two permissions: AWS Elastic Beanstalk Enhanced Health, and the second one here, the name is very long. And for EC2 instance profile, you need to create a new EC2 role. Click view permission details here to know the required permission of this role. You can see it requires 3 permissions: AWS Elastic Beanstalk Web Tier, AWS Elastic Beanstalk Worker Tier, and AWS Elastic Beanstalk Multi-Container Docker. Okay, so click the IAM console link here. Note that here you click the view permission details button and click IAM console here to go to the identity and access management console to create a new role for the deployment of our Spring Boot application. Okay, so this is the IAM dashboard, identity and access management. Click roles here. Okay, and click the button create role and choose AWS service, and use case choose EC2. Okay, click next, and here for the permissions type AWS Elastic Beanstalk and choose the 3 required permissions. The first one is AWS Elastic Beanstalk Web Tier, the second one AWS Elastic Beanstalk Worker Tier, and the last one AWS Elastic Beanstalk Multi-Container Docker. And click next and enter the role name. For this new role is AWS Elastic Beanstalk EC2 role. Okay, click create role button here. Okay, you see the role AWS Elastic Beanstalk EC2 role created. You can check here, and it is assigned with 3 permissions here. Okay, and now we can close this tab, back to the second step, configure service access, and click the refresh button here, and you can see the new role created here, and select it. Okay, and click next to go to the next step. You see the third step is optional, set up networking, database, and tasks. So I just keep the predefined settings and click next. And the fourth step is also optional, to configure instance traffic and scaling. So just skip it, go to the next step. The next step, the fifth step, is to configure updates, monitoring, and logging. Okay, here we just need to add a new environment variable here under the environment properties section here, because Elastic Beanstalk assumes that the application will listening on port 5000, so we need to add a new environment property here. So click this button, add environment property, with the name is port and the value is 5000, to override the port used by our Spring Boot application, which is the port number 8080 by default. Okay, then click next to go to the last step for reviewing all the information we configure so far. You see environment information, web server environment, application name, application code is the executable jar file, and platform, and configure service access, and so on. So if you want to change any information, you can click the edit button of each step here. You see. Okay, and that's all for the information, and we are ready to start the deployment process. So to start the deployment process on this review page, click the submit button at the end of the page here to initiate the deployment process of the Spring Boot application, a simple Spring Boot application without database. And you see it shows the environment page of the application being deployed. You see with the environment name is my Spring Boot app dash inf here, and you can see the information overview information of the environment. Health status is unknown, and domain. And you see when the deployment is successful, we can access the application using this domain name, environment ID, application name, platform, running version. We will see the running version once the deployment is successful. And you can see in the events tab here, it shows the logging information, the detailed information of the deployment process, so you can know what is really going on. You see it update Amazon S3 storage bucket here to install the executable jar file. You see waiting for EC2 instance to launch. Note that the deployment process may take a few minutes to complete. And you can see instance deployment completed successfully. The health status of the environment is banning. You can see instance deployment successfully detected a jar file on the source bundle. Okay, you can see the running version is version 1. You see the message Elastic Beanstalk is launching your environment. This will take a few minutes, and now you see the green indicator bar. Environment successfully launched. That means the deployment of our Spring Boot application is successful. You can see the health status is okay here. And you can see the last message in the events tab here is application available at my Spring Boot app.usis2.elasticbeanstalk.com and successfully launched environment name. And now we are ready to access the newly deployed Spring Boot application under environment overview box here. Click the domain here to open the newly deployed application. We got an error here. Let me check what is wrong here. So if you see this error, you can check the logs here. Retrieve the last 100 lines of log on the server, on the virtual server, to see what is wrong. Okay, you see Tomcat started on port 8080 with context path empty, started Spring Boot form application. Look for error message. I don't see anything wrong here. Everything seems to be okay. To fix the issue, we need to update the configuration, environment configuration. So update, click the configuration on the left here under the environment. And because somehow this Spring Boot application uses a different variable name for server port, so under the section updates, monitoring and logging, click edit. Here we need to change the variable name to server underscore port value 5000. Click apply to update the environment. And you can see the message environment update is starting, and it may take a few minutes for the redeployment of the application because we have made change to the configuration. You see it says environment update successfully completed. You see here environment update completed successfully. The health information is now just info. Now let me refresh. Go to environment name, and you can see view causes status is okay. You can see on the left side the applications menu showing all the deploy applications on AWS, and for each application we can see the environments. Okay, the health status is okay now if I see here, but when I click the environment name it is just info. Okay, you can see the last message environment how it has transitioned from info to okay. Okay, click the domain here, and you see now the sample Spring Boot application is running, and I can access the web form here. You see, okay, it is running. You know, when an application is deployed, Elastic Beanstalk uses several AWS resources, so you can check, go to services, compute EC2 to check the virtual server used by your application. You see there's one instance running for the application, my Spring Boot application instance ID running states. Here you can see, and the details of the virtual server you can see here. So if you want, you can check the details of EC2 virtual server running your application. And the second service required by your application is S3. So go to S3 from the menu services storage, S3. Yeah. And you can see it created a new bucket, and inside this bucket you can see the executable Java file of the application is stored here alongside with as a metadata for the application. Okay, and of course the IAM service is also used by the deployment process when it creates a new role. So go to IAM from the menu services, identity, security, identity and compliance, and go to IAM here. Okay, you see IAM dashboard and click roles here, and you can see the new role created. AWS Elastic Beanstalk service role. It has the permissions. AWS Elastic Beanstalk enhanced health, and AWS Elastic Beanstalk managed APS customer role policy. Very long role name, permission name, and the role AWS Elastic Beanstalk EC2 role is the one we manually created before. Okay, and depending on your application, relational database server is also required. So you can check under storage, on the database here and RDS here to see if your application is using any relational database. For now, I don't use any database, so no DB instance. Yeah. To stop running application hosted on AWS, you can terminate the environment associated with the application. So on Elastic Beanstalk Web Management Console, click Applications and go to the application, and you can see the environment here. And to terminate, click the action here, action context menu, and click Terminate Environment here. And you can see confirm environment termination. Okay, and enter the environment name to confirm. My Spring Boot app dash in, and click Terminate button to stop the running application, and Elastic Beanstalk will unprovisioned resources required by the application. And you can see the logging messages here. Terminate environment is starting. Elastic Beanstalk is terminating the environment. And you can see waiting for EC2 instances to terminate. This may take a few minutes. And you can see the message environment successfully terminated, health status is unknown, and you can see the last logging message, terminate environment completed successfully. Okay, if you go to environment here, and you can see it is terminated here. The application is still there, but one environment it contains is terminated, and you can restore a terminated environment to launch it again, to run it again. So click the action menu and click restore environment. And when an application is no longer needed, you can delete it from AWS. So go to Elastic Beanstalk Web Management Console, click Applications, and select the application you want to undeploy, to delete, and click Actions and click Delete Application. And it shows a confirm modal dialog, confirm application deletion. And you can see if you proceed with this action, the following environments will be terminated. That means when an application is undeployed, all the associated environments will be terminated. So enter the name of the application to confirm the deletion. My Spring Boot app, and click delete to remove the application from AWS. And you can see the message, my Spring Boot app application is being deleted. And it may take a few minutes for the application to be completely removed from AWS. Okay, so far you have seen how to deploy a simple Spring Boot application without database on AWS Cloud using Elastic Beanstalk Web Management Console. Note that you must manually create a new role for EC2 instance if not exist that has the following required policies: AWS Elastic Beanstalk Web Tier, AWS Elastic Beanstalk Worker Tier, and AWS Elastic Beanstalk Multi-Container Docker. And let Elastic Beanstalk create a new service role or use an existing one if exists. And also note that for Spring Boot application, you need to update the environment properties of the environment. By default, a Spring Boot application running on embedded Tomcat server listening on port number 8080, but Elastic Beanstalk assumes that the application will listen on port number 5000. So we need to specify an environment variable with the name is port or server underscore port and value is 5000. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment and share this video. Thanks for watching.